The Power Trip is a proud member of the KAIJU Ramen Podcast Network. You can find more phenomenal kaiju and tokusatsu content at kaijuramenmedia.com.
What's up, everyone? It is JDF, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to The Power Trip. It's Morphin time. Lisa!
Taisaku Sentai, Pod Ranger.
Hello, listeners with attitude. I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're continuing our journey through the Power Rangers franchise.
In today's episode, we're discussing the comic book Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 25th Anniversary Special number 1.
Listeners with attitude, are you f***ing happy? Because now you have a 5-hour episode.
Wow, kicking the show off with a dragon dagger. You realize now they are trying to speak other episodes into existence. They're like, yay, you gave us 5. We want 6.
We demand 10. I am Grimlock and I demand. Okay, that's enough of that.
What?
Anyway.
That was terrible because it's me, Grimlock, demand 10.
That's right. Me,
Grimlock, demand speak pigeon English.
Right. Oh boy. Yeah,
Okay.
so screw you.
Yeah, I'm just borrowing a page from our friend Elijah Thomas's book, is all I'm saying.
I mean, I don't read Iddle Whittle Had a Piddle or whatever preschool book he's reading right now. He's probably sitting in his room right now reading Everybody Poops.
The sad thing is he'll be 30 by the time he listens to this.
This is true. He'll probably be retired from film school, or he'll probably be graduated from film school by the time he actually gets around to listening to this, because he refuses to listen to our show until he has actually watched.
Until he's actually watched, and he keeps saying it's like, I don't have time to listen to podcasts. I'm too busy making podcasts.
Well, I'm too busy staying up till 4 a.m. making podcasts.
To talk to my Australian friend who's obsessed with The Ring. Why did we just turn Elijah into Norg?
No, it's not Norg. It's Eeyore. Remember?
It's Eeyore.
Eeyore.
Well, okay. Yeah, but your Norg is just Happy Eeyore, okay?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Actually, that's more Kermit. What'd I do there?
I was getting that's Scottish
Kermit
or something there. Anyway, we're coming off the rails. We're talking about some more Boom Studios comics today. Let's transition away from the madness.
Oh yes, we are talking about Boom Studios comics. Yes, we are. Oh, Empress Rita.
That's funny because you're not in any of these.
This is true. In fact, that just reminds me, sorry if you're listening to this show, I haven't sent my lines yet, and I need to do that.
You suck.
I know.
You keep promising and you don't do it. But anyway, I know people are thinking, why are you only talking about one issue? It's because this is a 25th anniversary comic, and we're going to be pausing our comic book coverage because we've got 30th anniversary stuff to talk about, namely Once and Always, which also means you're going to get 2 Sentai episodes in a row. So prepare thyself.
But before we get into the nitty gritty here of this comic book, we actually do have some podcast feedback to read out because we're really terrible about reading our feedback, guys. We're so sorry. So we're trying to play catch up because we've gotten a slew of emails and podcast reviews and just general like comments and feedback in our Power Rangers Legacy Facebook group. So we are trying to catch up. So starting now, we will try our best to be a lot better about reading y'all's feedback because that's what we promised. So anyway, this week's feedback comes from our listener, Derek Stropel. If I'm saying your last name incorrectly, I am so sorry. And it is an iTunes review. It is 5 stars. The title of the review is I Love This Show. And the review reads, I picked a random episode to listen to and came across your Time Force episode. You guys do the work and it comes out great. Also, I also loved that someone has the same opinion of the Quantum Ranger as me. So to be fair, Derek, I don't remember exactly what we said about the Quantum Ranger outside of we liked the character. So Nathan, maybe
I gushed over.
That's
the
right.
Quantum
That's
Ranger.
right. That's right. You were simping over the Quantum Ranger. I remember.
I was man crushing. Get it right.
That's true. That is true. So before this episode gets too far off the rails, Nathan,
it isn't already.
You're right. Damn it. Regardless, cue the epic rock music.
Boom Studio celebrates Power Rangers Silver Anniversary with 5 more phenomenal stories. First, Rita transforms Scorpina's pet silkworm into an ugly dog as a Trojan horse to destroy the Mighty Morphin Rangers. Then new Rangers Aisha and Adam try to prove themselves by completing one of Billy's formulas, only to get into literal big trouble with Goldar. Next, Udana travels into the underworld to save her dead husband Leonbo, but she must battle a mysterious knight guarding him. After this, the Mighty Morphin and Ninja Steel Rangers join forces, sorta, through interdimensional time travel shenanigans to destroy a horrifically powerful monster threatening the Earth. Finally, Karone confronts her sinful past as Astronema when she's abducted and put on trial, but her brother and fellow Galaxy Rangers will do whatever it takes to save her.
So, okay. So the first time I have the actual anniversary issue of this series.
You have the actual floppy.
Yes, I have the actual floppy. Yeah, I have the actual
floppy.
But
So
the one I have is hardcover. But you get the
wait. Did you read it from the Beyond the Grid collection, or do you have the actual original comic book?
I have the actual original comic book.
Okay, because I read it from the Beyond the Grid hardback
collection,
Big Bad Special Edition collection.
Right. So yeah, that's I read it. I read it from the actual comic book, the original release.
So how can you kind of gauge how long the actual issue is? I'm guessing about 50 pages.
It's about 50 pages. Yeah, it's about 50
pages. It's a double length.
Because these stories are very condensed, like minisodes, as in terms of like story.
Right. It's a double length issue, basically. Mm-hmm. This kind of stuff is done a lot in comic books. They used to do stuff like this all the time, particularly Marvel and DC. They up until probably the 2000s, I would say, they were called annuals, and they would get their own individual numbering, which is why I think it's funny that this is anniversary special number 1 and there hasn't been a number 2 yet.
Well, this was the 25th. This was the 25th, so I'm we might get something for the 30th. So who
knows? But why would it? But it would be the 30th anniversary special, not the 25th. True. So the numbering would be silly. But they were called annuals. They would be twice as long, and as the name would say, they only put them out once a year, and that's generally where they would do some bigger stories, some stories with a bit more weight or something like that. They were special, basically. That's why they only came out once a year.
They were events.
They were events.
They were event comic. Yeah, they were more event.
They were event stories for sure. Event comics is a whole other can of worms that I'm not opening right now.
Right. So I have to ask. This is my second time reading through this collection.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. I
Right.
will admit there is only, I would say, one story in here that has any like narrative or substantive weight, and we'll get there.
Right.
But
We'll get there.
Nathan,
Yeah. We should say there are 5 short stories collected in this. It's an anthology.
right.
Anthology comics are not very common anymore either. They were more popular back in the, I would say, like the 50s through, well, no, really up until probably about the 70s, I would say. And a
Right.
lot of anthology comics were horror,
Mhm.
and they all got shut down in the 50s because of seduction of the innocent and that psychologist shenanigans just trying to destroy the comic book industry.
Mhm.
That's a whole rant unto itself. But
Right.
but anyway, so there's a couple of kind of long time comic book traditions that are being practiced in this single issue by
Right.
Boom with this. But to be honest, I can't find too much information about what went into the creation of this comic other than it was done by Boom to mark the 25th anniversary of the franchise.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, Ninja Steel was the team at this time.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, there's actually not, at least I can't find much anyway. There's not a ton of information on it, like you said.
right.
Um,
The best I can give you is I can tell you the creative team behind each of these short stories.
mhm,
You know, that's about all I can do. I'm guessing so really, like I said, it was just they were just celebrating the 25th anniversary, probably, and got a bunch of the people at the studio to work on this, and they did their own, different little stories that harkened back to either the beginning of Power Rangers or some of or just spanned different parts of the franchise. This
mhm.
is pretty Mighty Morphin heavy, I will say, because out of the 5, 2 are Mighty Morphin stories. One is a Mighty Morphin crossover, so it's like 2.5.
Yeah, I would say 2.5. Yeah,
It's
two and a
kind of
half.
2.5, and
But you know what I really like about this special, and we can get into it a little bit later. I like how we get like a broad, I like how we get a broad, like, assortment of comics that kind of span not just the history of the show, but the tone of the show. We get that
right.
we start off with this really campy story with Scorpina and her silkworm, and they transform the silkworm into a dog to try to
Are we going to get
hypnotize.
into it now, or are we just talking about how the tones go all over the place
Yeah, I
with
mean, I
it?
just want to talk about I just want to talk
Okay,
tonally right now,
right.
how this thing progresses, and how as a 25th anniversary special issue, like, there's a good mix of the type of material that we have kind of come to expect from Power Rangers. Like,
Mhm.
as I was reading through this collection, I'm thinking back to all those conversations that you and I had throughout season 1 of the podcast, and how, yes, there's a lot of elements to Power Rangers that are incredibly campy and stupid, and they're just really just absurd and silly, but there are also some
I
of
was
these
going to say
really
silly is what I would say, not necessarily stupid.
stupid is not a good.
Well, maybe
There are
stupid
some
would apply to some
there
things.
there are some stupid there are some stupid moments in Power Rangers. We both know that. Looking at you, those who will not be named on this podcast anymore. Um,
You know who
but
you are. There's at least
but
3 or 4 of
but
you.
but there are at least a couple of stories in this that really embrace those more serious, thoughtful elements of Power Rangers that we also got to know throughout our
Right,
journey through the franchise in season 1.
right. Well, like I said, not a whole lot of preliminary stuff to go over, so let's just dive into this issue. I can talk. Let's just dive into this
Use your words.
issue. Yeah, and we'll go through each story individually. So, starting with Pet Project, written by Jessica Quinones. I hope I said
Mhm.
this right. Illustrated by Joe Quinones. Oh, I'd love to know if they're like brother and sister, married couple, or whatever. colored by Marcelo Costa and lettered by Ed Dukeshire.
Right.
So this is a Mighty
Dukeshire.
Morphin story,
Mhm.
and it feels very much like a Mighty Morphin story.
Well, yeah, that's
It
what I was.
definitely dates itself. This is kind of interesting. It dates itself pretty hard because Tommy's the White Ranger, so this is obviously season 2, but I think we still have the original team in here, so it's that sweet spot where Tommy's the White Ranger, but we still have the original team. However, Zed is not in this, but we have Scorpina. So I was
And
a little
Rita.
confused as to whether or not it was following the show continuity or if this is more of a Boom Studios continuity or if it's just its own thing.
I think it's just his own thing. So if anyone out there that knows that is more well-rounded in these comics can tell me, I think this is essentially its own thing because yes, that's what stood out to me the most is, the opening page is a conversation between Rita and Scorpina. So that kind of gives you an idea of what time period in Ranger history that we're dealing with here. But then we fast forward and
I should say, just in those first 3 panels, there's gobs of references to Ranger lore because they say,
Right.
Scorpina, you've been gone. Then they talk about the green candle and they bring up the Wizard of Deception and they mention Scorpina's pet silkworm. I mean, that's a lot.
It is. It's a lot of Ranger. It's also a lot of like Zhu Ranger lore as well because the silkworm, her pet silkworm, was part of Zhu Ranger as well. But
it was.
But then we get Tommy as the White Ranger, and as anyone who knows, Tommy doesn't become the White Ranger until season 2, and the main villain in that during that continuity is Zed. So
yeah, Rita's gone.
Yeah, Rita's gone at this point. So I think this might just be Boom's own thing. That's what it leads me to believe is it's just Boom's own thing and they're just using Rita as the big bad. But that's what kind of threw me off a little bit when I first read this comic. Now, the second reading, I knew what to expect. But yeah, Tommy is the White Ranger. And I'm wondering if they're not doing it for more so comedic effect, cats and dogs.
So.
Like cats and dogs.
Cats,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, cats and dogs, because Rita's grand plan in this is to take the silkworm and turn it into the world's ugliest pug. Puppy power! Because pugs are one of the only breeds of dog, or really breeds of any domesticated animal, who can somehow be endearingly ugly.
I know. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because this is not a pretty dog. And I'm also just trying to get over the juxtaposition of silkworm dog.
Right.
It's wacky. It is very Mighty Morphin season 1, I will say. And and we get some Bulk and Skull action in this, and they actually mess around with the evil plan for once. That didn't happen very much in the show. But Rita's getting genuinely frustrated because they're ruining everything. Because they take the dog and name it Bubba. Well, Bulk names it Bubba, and Skull wants to name him Hubcap.
Bubba or Hubcap. A pug's. No offense to anyone who has a pug out there, but a pug's face kind of looks like it's been slapped with a hubcap. But that's just.
If we weren't trying to stick with the shtick of taking an out of context line this season, that might actually be the episode title right there.
Yes. Yes, quite.
Yes, quite. But yeah, so that it's pretty simple and straightforward. So they make the dog. They want it to kill the Rangers. It gets taken away. They get frustrated. Scorpina gets more involved, and then there's Ranger morphing and things like that. And
Right.
It's pretty, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. I did like the line, where it's Skull and him and Bulk are walking the dog and eating hot dogs, and it says 3 dogs taking a walk. Ha ha. Ha ha, guys.
Ha
Ha.
ha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny guys. I did like the series of panels after that when Scorpina shows up and basically says, "Give me the dog back." How in each one it's a reaction shot of Bulk's skull and then the dog, and the exclamation points increase as you read across the panels.
Right.
That made me laugh. Now, here's another nitpick. Those are clearly season 1 putties.
Yes, they are. Which
Those are not
again,
putties.
which makes me because I thought reasonably okay. So maybe this is season 3 or latter season 2. Rita when Rita comes back, but yeah, those are season 1 putties. Those are not Z. Those are not the Z putties.
Yeah. Yeah. And predictably, in true Mighty Morphin fashion, we get a make my monster grow moment. And so we get giant ugly pug, ugly worm pug. and I think I know why they went with White Tommy. Maybe this is why they did White Tommy, because he summons a Tiger Zord. So because we got to do cats and dogs.
Of course.
And they play tug of war with a radio tower. I'm gonna tell you right now, a cat wouldn't do that.
No, as an owner of 2 cats, and I don't know about. I mean, of course, if you're a cat owner out there, your mileage may vary. But mine don't play tug of war with things. They just don't. That's a dog trait. But that's a nitpick as well. Like, I guess, like, you could, like, I just think the reason why Tommy is the White Ranger in this is for the comedic effect of dogs versus cats.
Right.
Like, that's pretty much it.
Right.
But this is an incredibly just harmless story, and it goes back to what we were talking about. Like, there's a good mix of campiness and seriousness with this comic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it ends in a very Mighty Morphin sort of way. Funny enough, Bulk and Skull are hanging out with the Rangers in their civilian lives. I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's a little different. And they're like, we miss the dog. And then a hooded Scorpina shows up and finds the dog and takes it away. It's like, I'll make sure you get turned back into a worm. Because they don't kill the dog. They make the dog shrink at the end, because they figure out the source of its power is its dog collar, its giant dog collar. So that's a little different. We get some Zords, but it ultimately comes down to Tommy just jumping up and slicing the dog collar off.
Right.
And then it's punctuated with the Rangers showing up, and this is just so funny to me. They're sitting there posing and then making puns. And I'm like,
you're looking
Kim,
a little.
Why are you doing that other than to look pretty?
You're looking a little rough, Tommy.
Yeah, you're looking a little rough. Maybe that should be our episode title now. You're looking a little rough. Yeah. I mean, it's so obvious, but yes. Whatever at this point. It is what it is. It fits. It's a harmless story. It's pretty insubstantial, but a little cotton candy here and there is nice.
Yeah.
So
like, you can't eat like we've talked about. You can't eat cotton candy all the time, or else you'll get sick. Or fat, whichever one, but sick probably would come first.
Probably both.
But both. But
either that or figure out how to weaponize it and put it in a laser gun.
This is true.
Ultraman X, people. Ultraman X.
But like we said, I don't want to belabor the point. But this is an incredibly harmless story. It's campy. It's fun. Next.
Right. Next, we have Golden Ideas, written and illustrated by Sina Grace, color by Eleonora Bruni, and lettered by Ed Dukeshire. So this is another Mighty Morphin story, but it is much more clearly supposed to take place during season 2, because Rita's not here. We have the Thunder Zords, Well, we technically had the Thunderzords in the previous one. But the main thing is that it's Zed, Rita's not here, and we have the new team here. This is post power transfer because we have Rocky, Aisha, and Adam. The story focuses primarily on Adam and Aisha. And just a quick little fact that I found out about this looking at the Ranger Wiki. Apparently, the panel that we have here, this 2-page spread with the 4-armed blue hamster exploding. Apparently, that is taken from another comic.
I said it kind of looks like a Teletubby. the Thunder Megazord just slices Tinky Winky in half.
Never mind. This was. Oh wait, no wait. What's it? Golden Dream started with a single page in this issue depicting the Thunderzord defeating a monster Zed. Okay. Oh, never mind. That's nothing. It's not that they didn't use it. They just changed it from a single page to a 2-page spread, though. They just changed
a double page spread.
Gotcha. Yeah, they just changed the page layout. Never mind. Yeah. Nothing that interesting. I thought it was going back to another comic. But anyway.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it works though.
The main draws in this are the frickin' rad bug.
Well, I was going to say too. It's the frickin' this one does seem more. This one does seem more like it's living inside of the Prime continuity.
It does.
This is the more Prime continuity here. This is not Boom Studios as much as it is like the main show, but
right.
Yes, the whole plot centers around Billy's laboratory and the rad bug.
Right, which is just funny that they bring the rad bug of all things back. It's like if the Saban dropped it after a few episodes. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they just didn't want to use the footage anymore, or maybe they thought this is really silly. But it's become something that a lot of Ranger fans just love to death. The freaking thing is coming back in once and always.
Right. Well, of course, it's the rad bug. It's the rad bug, man. I have one in my garage right now.
This is the wrong show.
Wait, this is the wrong show. Never mind. I forgot.
This is the wrong show.
They're all starting to bleed together. Oh, no.
I understand. Trust me. I do want to say this little bit of meta humor about Rita's catchphrase is kind of funny. At this juice bar panel, Zed may be super obnoxious, but at least you guys don't have to hear "make my monster grow" like every week,
right?
Which doesn't make sense because Rita is saying it on the frickin' moon. How are they supposed to hear it?
Reruns.
Sure, but anyway, yeah. So. Right. Aisha and Adam are like, well, we gotta show them that we're good Rangers. So let's go finish something Billy started. We don't know what it is. They just go to his garage without permission to muck around with his stuff, and so they're playing around in his lab, and then Goldar just shows up because Zed told him to go kill him some Rangers. So he's like, okay,
which there is precedent for that because Goldar did show up at Billy's house once, while Trini and who was in the garage working when Goldar showed up. All of them, I think. But
I think it was Green with Evil.
Yeah, that's right. It was Green with Evil. Yeah. All of them were in the garage because they were trying to figure out still who Tommy was.
Right. And it leads to this. Honestly, if kind of nerd-tastic, big ol' 2-page spread of Goldar attacking the rad bug. Like that is the centerpiece of this story.
Right. It's the centerfold. It's the centerfold of this story.
Yeah. It is just surreal to see that because you're like, why didn't this happen? Oh, wait, it's because Saban was cheap.
Pretty much. But the whole, yeah. So we've got this 2-page spread. Goldar's got his claws deeply dug into the rad bug. Adam and Aisha are inside. They're getting ready to morph. At the same time, Zed says, "Fool, you almost got them. Now, before you lose your chance." And he makes Goldar grow, and
well, no, you missed the part here where he actually says, "Will that golden buffoon actually pull this off?"
Which is I wish I could do a good Zed voice, but anyway, yes. So he makes Goldar.
Sadly, you are. What was the original actor's name again? Axelrod. You're not Mr. Axel. You are not Mr. Axelrod, nor are you Omri.
How dare you? How dare you not know who the original voice?
I remembered after a second anyway. So yes, Goldar gets big, and then we find out what Adam and Aisha had been working on.
Right.
A growth formula. Begs the question why they never used this again later, but whatever. So we get some giant ranger versus kaiju action here, and it's not the end of Zeo or Green with Evil.
I mean, I liked the end of Zeo. I don't know what your problem was with it.
I'm not saying, I'm just bringing it up. Like, there are other times this has happened. That was it.
Right. So we see Adam and Aisha battle with giant Goldar for minutes.
And by the way, when it happens, Adam says taking down Goldar is a tall order.
But Tish, yeah. So yeah, this is a fun issue. There's really not much going on outside of Goldar goes to try to stop the Rangers. He gets big, and so do the Rangers. But the whole weirdness of this issue is just they use a growth formula to grow large, and that's it. So there's pretty much
and then the rest of the Ranger and the rest of the Rangers are like, oh, okay, they are gonna be good. Okay, guys. Sure.
Okay.
Although these last couple of pages do leave me a little bit confused because Goldar is described as both a monkey and a cat. Make up your mind!
I always thought he was a wolf, but that's just me.
I think when I watched the show as a kid, I figured he was a monkey because Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense too, but wolf was always what I had. Wolf was what I always had in mind whenever I saw Goldar. But regardless,
nobody can agree. So
that's neither here nor there. So we can move on to the next story, which I feel like this. I feel like this. I was just saying. I feel like this book is kind of slowly progressing, in tone as we keep going deeper and deeper into it. So the next
and no.
But the next one is really interesting because this is a prequel. This is supposed to be a prequel to Mystic Force. Involving
they went with a Mystic Force story, which is an interesting choice, but I'm also going to tell you that I feel like out of all of them, I mean, as fluffy as the first two are, I feel like this one is the most inconsequential.
Well, it's meant to just kind of give a backstory as to what happened with Liambo and Udana.
But it doesn't really expand much on what we know from the show.
It doesn't, but at least, I mean, but the show, if you remember the show though, Nathan, it didn't go into a ton of detail about what exactly happened to Liambo outside of becoming the...
No, it did mention it.
Becoming Korag.
Yeah. But anyway, the title of the story is Sweetest of Dreams. It was written by Magdalene Visaggio. I hope I said both of those names right. It was illustrated by French Carlo Magno, and again, lettered by Ed Dukeshire. Anyway, this one is definitely more serious compared to the other two. And the art style is really different as well. This is kind of a pseudo manga style here. The characters are they're probably if you're talking about the likenesses to the actors, this is probably the one with the least resemblance to the actors, because like if unless you had told me that was Udana, I probably wouldn't have thought that was Udana.
I mean, I could see it's Udana. It's probably a younger Udana, but it's Udana.
Yeah. Now we do get to see the Mystic Mother in this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, what is the face actress's name for Rita?
The Japanese actress?
Yeah, the Japanese actress. Yes.
I'll look it up. Keep talking.
Well, I was just gonna say that, like, this looks like the Mystic Mother.
It does.
This looks like the Mystic Mother. So, I mean, I don't have a problem. I honestly don't have a problem with the art style in this book. It's a lot more reminiscent of contemporary comics. Whereas
Machiko Soga.
Thank you. I'm a terrible fan for not knowing that. I'm looking kind of back at the previous issue, just kind of skimming through here, specifically the first issue with the first installment, Pet Project. That's more reminiscent of some of the older Mighty Morphin comics. And then this one is a much more updated art style. You know, it's what it reminds me of. But I think these characters work. I think they look like their counterparts. The Mystic Mother looks like herself, so does Udana. But what's interesting is the conversation between the Mystic Mother and Udana wants to find out what happened to Korag, and essentially the Mystic Mother is telling her, well, you can't find out. You're not ready.
Well, Lianbo, not Korag.
Lianbo. Yeah, Lianbo.
Yeah, we see Korag, but he's never named.
Right. So,
the irony is that Korag is guarding Lianbo in the underworld.
Right. So I just think this is in a lot of ways, I think it's just a really tragic story. I mean, yes, does it really give us any new information that we didn't know already from Mystic Force? No, not really. But it still is, to see it played out here is really interesting. In fact, this last panel here, let me find it here. It's when Udana is fighting Korag, and it starts with Udana saying, "I will fight and I will win, or I will die." Korag responds, "So are you in love with Lianbo, or are you simply simply hopeless causes?" So it's kind of it's I like the language there, because it's indicating that, you know, her efforts are hopeless, as well as Lianbo himself is a hopeless cause. So maybe that's trying to tell her that he's already been, you know, possessed or something. This last panel is very Korag, though. At least when they're in the underworld, he says, I have immense respect for you, for your devotion. I could destroy you, and still you persist. So let me speak plainly. And he goes on.
Let us speak plainly.
So the next couple of panels is a conversation between her.
I'm going to be honest with you. As big a moment as it is to see Udana morph and fight Korag, it's not that good of a fight. He just embarrasses her.
Right. I mean, he does. But I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that this is a much more interesting installment in this issue than the two previous ones we just discussed. Because at least it expands a little bit, not a ton, a little bit though, on some Ranger lore. Whereas the other two didn't quite do that.
Right. And the rest of the conversation that you were talking about continues in some voice boxes on the next page where he says, "Your Liambo is dead and you cannot unlock his chains, but you still live. So go and live or be bound in your own." And that's supposed to be what motivates her to get the Mystic Force Ranger team put together. But it even says that the memories of this encounter fade with time. And I'm like, then what? Part
Then
of me
what's the
just feels
point?
like, well, then what was the point?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see that. That's yeah. I mean,
And
I
I
can
get
see
what
that.
it's trying to do, but I don't think it makes its point as strongly as it should have. Does that make sense?
I think that it makes its point strong enough. Is it perfect? No, but I think it makes its point strong enough. But I mean, I guess it's a little bit subjective whether or not we believe it makes it strong. Um if it makes a strong point or not. I personally believe it does.
Well, okay,
Uh
the moral of the story is strongly stated. I'm talking about just what was the point of the story? If the memory is fading, but she decides to get this is what motivates her to get the Mystic Force Rangers together.
well, I mean, the point is her devotion to Liambo. That's the point.
I mean, this is this does draw from the classics. The descent into the underworld to save someone you love. It goes all the way back to Greek mythology. There's
Mhm.
actually a term for it, which I had kind of forgotten about. It's katabasis, which
Oh,
means
I've never heard that before, but okay.
yeah, which is derived from the Greek words for down and go.
Oh.
But but it's anytime it's a descent into the underworld. Probably the most famous example of this would be Orpheus and Eurydice. Except in this case, it's reversed. Because Orpheus is the husband going to the
Mhm.
underworld to save his wife Eurydice.
Right.
So the genders are swapped, but it's still basically the same thing, and that ended tragically.
Right. So, I mean, it's a good
So
story.
yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's all right. Yeah, it's okay. And then we move on to Sealed, which was written by Matt Groom and Michael Busut Basuttle.
Mhm.
Basuttle? I hope I said that
Mhm.
right. Illustrated by Lucas Wernick,
Mhm.
colored by Eleonora Bruni, and once again, lettered by Ed Dukeshire. See, I got the name right this time. This is the one that I said was kind of a Mighty Morphin story. It's a crossover, but it's a crossover with our favorite one.
I mean, it's not. I mean, look, it's the
At least they left
celebratory.
the two worst characters out.
Right. It's the celebratory 25th anniversary one because this is a crossover between the original Mighty Morphin team and Ninja Steel.
And Ninja
Um
Steel.
yeah. So, I
But
mean, I
no
don't
red bot. That's a strike against it. No red bot.
no
What the
red
heck? But
bot,
they
you're right.
we got Mick and Alpha together, which is
Yes.
hmm.
Greetings, Rangers.
Are we gonna do a dramatic reading
No,
like
I'm
the
not.
other
I'm
comic?
not. There's nothing dramatic enough to use the alpha voice for, but I just wanted to say
I don't.
that.
I mean, I don't know,
But this was
but
yeah. This is
it is actually Alpha 5. It is specifically Alpha 5 because he
it's
says,
alpha.
"I
Yes,
came
it's
from
called
Eltar."
right. Right. And so they have to do the kind of exposition to catch the audience up. Alpha 5, the greatest invention of King Lexian of
Yeah,
Eden, the
of
greatest
Illinois.
invention of King Lexian of Edenoi, Zordon of Eltar's celebrated technician, loyal assistant to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And then someone says, "Oh, the dinosaur ones?" Yes, the dinosaur ones. The dinosaur ones, jackass. That one.
Oh, but not those dinosaur ones.
Good lord, people. Come on. Anyway.
Yeah, but we also find out that apparently Mick and Alpha have history together. I want a comic about this.
Oh, yeah, Mick, Alpha, and
because
Norg.
Mick is one of the best things in Ninja Steel, but that's because Kelson Henderson is great in everything.
Oh no, he is. He is. Like, it's just really sad that he only shows up for this one panel, because I really would have loved more Mick in this.
Oh no, he's in more than just that, but we only get the flashback in this one panel, which has Mick carrying what it's supposed to be a Kohulian egg, but it looks like a giant pine cone, and and Alpha is wearing a fake mustache and a top hat and an overcoat with a bow tie, and I'm like, I need to know. I need like. I need 00 Agent Alpha 5, okay?
I need context for this.
Agent
guys.
00 Alpha 5. There you go.
The name is Alpha. James Alpha.
No, it'd be 5. The name is 5. Alpha.
Alpha 5. Yes. The name is 5. Right. Rangers. Alpha 5. Evil Alpha 5. Anyway.
I need this. I need this, Boom. I need it.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, so after we get some of the exposition and some of the silliness out of the way, we find out that there is a Lovecraftian horror in this who has been sealed away by the Mighty Morphin Rangers. It can only escape when a comet that comes by every 25 years comes by. So they're like, you guys need to take care of it now. And then we get a weird series of panels where, thanks to interdimensional and apparently it's not time travel so much, I guess it's time travel, like interdimensional and time travel shenanigans, our Red Rangers get to team up, but it's not much of a team up. And then all they really do is they figure out it doesn't like fire, and then the implication is that 25 years further into the future, whatever team of Rangers there is at that point uses fire to kill it.
Right.
Oh, dragon fire specifically.
Right. So it's like, I just thought it was funny because this one panel here is the Mighty Morphin Rangers on one end are trying to push it through the portal, and then our Ninja Steel Rangers are trying to do the exact same thing. So there's this tug and pull on this monster from both ends, and then eventually the crossover happens.
Yeah, where Jason and I can't remember the kid's name, but Ninja Steel Red have something of a team up, but it basically just amounts to Ninja Steel Red shoving him out of the way.
Hang on, let me look. Hang on, it's gonna.
By the way, this monster, when I say Lovecraftian, I mean Lovecraftian, because it's an eyeball with tentacles. That's it.
Brody is his name, by the way.
Brody, yeah. But yeah. So, yeah. The team up lasts all of about 3 panels, and then Jason gets shoved out of the way. And then they figure it out. And then the sentiment is supposed to be that there's always going to be Power Rangers around. So even on the 50th anniversary of the franchise, there will still be Power Rangers to save us.
It's so saccharine, bro. It's this last panel here, or last two panels. Were you able to destroy it? No, but don't worry, it will be destroyed. Are you sure? Yeah, there will probably always be evil, but that's okay because we're not in it alone. We never were. There will always be people fighting for what's right. There will always be hope. There will always be Power Rangers.
Aww. So I kind of like the mystery, not mystery, but the ambiguity, and I like the and I like the sentiment. But as a team up goes, this is meh.
Yeah, this is pretty meh.
It's pretty meh. I mean, the art's nice, and the monster is freakish. I'll say that, but yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
really
okay.
doesn't really amount to much, and you
It
know,
doesn't.
a little
No,
bit
it
of a
doesn't.
sappy ending, but that's kind of how the Saban era was, right? A
Oh, a
lot
bunch
of
of.
nothing and sap, unless it's
I
Dino
mean,
Charge,
yeah, I get. Yeah,
which
I
is
guess
why they're saying like the dinosaur ones, but not that dinosaur one or that dinosaur one. Good lord, guys.
the other dinosaur one. You know the one. You know
The
that
other
dinosaur
dinosaur.
one. You know that dinosaur one.
Right, right. But not the thunderous one or the charging
No,
one.
no, the other one. The one that came first. The one with the witch and the one with the witch and the Cenobite guy
And the skeleton man.
and the skeleton man. Yes, quite.
Don't worry, he's not here. I promise.
Well, I was getting a little anxious. Okay, all right. So
I know. I could hear it in your voice as soon as I said skeleton man.
it's like, oh no, the skeleton man. All right, so you want to move on to the main event?
Yeah, this is the main event. Yeah, right here. The Trial of Astronema, written by Trey Moore, illustrated by, oh boy, Jung Lee. I hope I said that right. Also colored by Marcelo Costa and also lettered by Ed Dukeshire. All right, just get it over with. I know you're sitting on the jokes. Just get it over with now, okay?
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. I
Oh,
mean,
really? You forgot?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. So, but I do have to ask. But I do have to ask. What do you think she's on trial for? Like, did she walk into a blue wigs and black leather shop and
Oh,
steal
there we go.
everything? Did she steal? Did she steal anything besides your heart, Marchand?
See, I'll just get it out early. I will take ownership of it. Yes, I know. You're all probably thinking, Nate, you just like this one because it's about your Power Ranger crush. Yes, but this is also honestly the best. This really is the best story.
No,
of
it
the
really
bunch
is
because
it is
good
the best
grief,
story of the
there's
bunch.
so many gut punches in this.
Oh, it's so awful. Well, it's awful, but it's wonderful at the same time because yes, like this is definitely the best story of this collection. Like hands down, there is no question. The other three can't come close.
Another
This is
four.
other four can't come close. This is arguably the best one of the collection. And it's
Yeah,
the one it's the one with the most emotional and thematic weight to it.
It's also, I think, the one that, in terms of lore building and world building, I feel like this one really has a lot of weight and consequence.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah.
Now, once again, I'm reading it wondering if it's part of the show continuity or if it's more of a Boom Studios thing, because, and it's just little details that I notice. They still act as though Corone,
Mhm.
that's who we're following. Well, that's the main character here.
Mhm.
Corone they act like she's still part of the Galaxy Rangers. And she's on but she's also on Miranoi, which makes me think that this is after the show. Maybe
Yeah, this would be
it would be after the
this
show, but
would
they also act like Kendricks is still dead. That's the
right.
main
So
hang up I have here. At
well,
least that's the implication I'm
yes.
getting.
Yes. So this is post Lost Galaxy. Yeah, this is after they've turned their quasar sabers back to the people of Miranoi.
Right. Right. But there's, oh my gosh, like I'm just looking at my notes on here, and this by far has the most notes. I think it's got about twice as many notes as the other four stories.
Mhm.
But the thing that really gets to me about this is an incredibly mature take on a lot of stuff in the Power Rangers franchise. And so I don't know if this is meant to emulate, say, shows like In Space or RPM or Lost Galaxy, or if it's meant to be more just this is the Boom Studios tone. I'm not entirely sure. I'm leaning toward this is the Boom Studios tone because it takes some of those what we might consider kind of cheesy things from the original show, and good grief, infuses it with a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, by implication, this really does bring up that, I mean, I'm all for redemption stories, and it was great what they did with Corone, but you do have to remind yourself she wasn't just some, 2-bit villain, some small-time crook or something like that. She was an intergalactic despot. She committed far-reaching, horrendous crimes. Those are not easily forgiven. They even
No. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, they even take something like her calling herself the Queen of Evil and give that weight. So like, she said she was the Queen of Evil.
Yeah, basically saying, oh, she admitted it. Like, it came from her own mouth. She admits it. She is the Queen of Evil. She was accused of war crimes, crimes against humanity, murder, etc. But
genocide,
genocide.
Invasion, like their laundry list of crimes is ridiculous.
Oh God, what was the list here? Hang on, I'm gonna find it here. I'm gonna find the list of crimes that they're charging her for.
This vile creature is not only the last surviving member of the United Alliance of Evil, she was Dark Spectre's second in command. She is directly responsible for the abduction and death of the Great Zordon, a loss the universe has yet to recover from. And when Dark Spectre died, she took control of his organization and publicly declared herself the Queen of Evil. The Queen of Evil, that says it all.
No, it's the bubble before that. It's like, Your Honor, I intend to prove that Corone of Space Colony KO35, better known as Astronema, is guilty of war crimes against the galaxy. This includes, but is not limited to, murder, invasion, abduction, enslavement of indigenous peoples, and conspiracy to conquer civilized planets. Like, that is some weighty charges.
Right. By the way, I do appreciate the Ecliptor cameo. That made me happy.
Yes, I appreciate that. I appreciated that.
And we also get actually, I'm looking at this because I think we get every rendition of Astronema in this too. Yeah, kind of flipping through.
Well, we have
we get purple hair Astronema twice.
Yes.
And then we get red hair Astronema once.
Android or cyborg Astronema.
Cyborg Astronema. Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is, they rattle all this off and they say, how do you plea? And then we don't get to hear her plea because they all get interrupted by Maya, Leo, and her brother Andros. So it's kind of a lost galaxy in space crossover primarily, but then we have another big cameo later on that we'll talk about. So we don't know what she was going to plea. I think we can safely assume it was going to be guilty.
Because that we learn later on in the book. We learn later on in the story that she actually wants to stand trial for the crimes that she committed, because she's obviously feeling a incredible amount of guilt for what she did while she was Astronema.
I think it goes beyond guilt even. I would say it's full-fledged shame at this point.
Well, it's all of it. It's guilt, shame, remorse, anger,
right?
Anger for what she was. Now she was controlled by Dark Spectre, but this is an interesting little story because it begs the question: does being controlled get you off the hook?
Well, you can make that argument for Cyborg Astronema, for red hair Astronema. But before that, I don't know if you can, which is what makes this complicated.
Well, she was raised to be evil.
She was raised to be evil, but she clearly, as we saw on the show, she wasn't all the way there. That's what the cybernetic enhancements did.
Right.
That pushed her all the way over the edge. But before that, she had a chance at redemption. And was slowly getting there. So that makes it complicated because that's because that's the interesting thing. We have Andros, her brother. We have
Mhm.
Maya, her best friend, we could argue,
Mhm.
and
Right.
Leo, who was her team leader as a Power Ranger. So these are basically 3 solid character witnesses here who can all
Right.
vouch for her.
These
And
are
Andros is
these all 3 of these characters have some level of influence in her life.
right. And Andros's defense is that Astronema was a different person. That wasn't
Mhm.
my sister.
So
I
here's the
don't know how
so
good of a defense that is,
well
unfortunately.
so here's the question. Here's the question. Is Andros in denial? Is this also a story about Andros being in denial about his
I th-
sister?
I think it is. I think it is. Now, I will say one thing I like about this comic is that it gives us something that I wish the show had done, which is having Andros and Corone interacting with each other,
Mhm.
post in space, post
Mhm.
Astronema, all
Mhm.
of that sort of stuff. Now, it's not under the best of circumstances, but we're getting some of that because, like I said, that was an opportunity that the show missed. But
Right.
I do think I do feel like Andros in particular is living in denial. If that is his defense, if that's the best he can come up with, because honestly, I feel like Maya and Leo had better defenses than Andros, because they were trying to say, look at what she's done since then.
Right. So
We
here's
know
the
because we've helped because we've seen it ourselves. She is doing everything she can to atone for what she did.
right.
And the
So
court was more impressed with that than anything Andros said.
right, because Andros's defense, as this comes after a little, I don't think it tells what the race this is, but um, and this is really this is really horrifying if you think about it. Um, this little alien says, "I'm the last of my kind. We were a peaceful race who expressed emotion through song. Then Astronema's dark fortress appeared in the sky. As she and her soldiers slaughtered us, my people sang out their agony. Astronema recorded the song. I heard she liked to play it on speakers when she invaded other planets. That is wicked. That is
That is,
wicked.
yeah, that is horrible. But the
And
one that
then,
honestly,
hang
this
on,
one I
hang
really
on,
like
hang
this.
on,
What?
hang on. But then Andros's counter to that, Corone was a helpless girl twisted against her will. It's ignorant to hold her responsible for Astronema's crimes. They're practically two
Two
different
different.
people. Yeah.
Now, I do think there's a level of truth to that because he says she was abducted. She was raised to be this way.
Mhm. Right.
You know, she was raised to be a loyal servant of
But
Dark Spectre. I
but
do
here's
think so. I think there's some credence to that, but hmm,
But here's the counter argument I will propose. If you think about all the problems, all the crimes that people commit now, like for example, a child was adopted by a family. That family happens to be a bunch of like neo-Nazi racists. That child grows up to be a racist and uh, kills a bunch of black and brown people. Who is held responsible then? The child, because he is a sentient human being who made that choice, or the parents who raised him that way. There's no crimes, at least here in America, there's no crimes of how you raise your children. It's the actions of your children that are that are put on trial. Does that make sense?
right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
That's like I said, I feel like Andros's defense is the weakest, but and then what I love is that there's this big page here.
Mhm.
And I love how this whole thing is composed because it's got a shackled Corone in the center, and then there are
Mhm.
these panels with different people talking, and it's arranged so that those who are condemning her are on the left, and then our 3 ranger friends here are defending her on the right. So it's framed almost like each of them is talking to a different talking to whoever's directly across from them. I love the
Right.
panel composition here.
Right.
But honestly, I feel like the second alien on the left side here, this has to be this for me was the biggest gut punch, I felt like.
Mhm.
So it's a one-eyed purple alien here, and he says, "When my people were enslaved, astronomous forces ravaged our sacred temples and replaced images of our gods with statues of Dark Spectre and herself." Now, here, if that wasn't bad enough, here you go. Prepare yourselves. Many planets have a myth of a creature that embodies all evil. We know our devil is real, and her name is Astronema.
Mhm.
Ow!
Yeah, that's blistering.
Oh, just wow. We know our devil is real, and her name is Astronema. I mean, dang.
Well, even what I'm assuming is Commander Kruger comes to
Yes, that's the other thing we get at SPD.
Mhm.
Bit in here. We get Kruger, our boy
Mhm.
Kruger, our man Kruger. And it's a little bit of a retcon, but I kind of love it.
It's a little bit of lore build. It's a little bit of lore building and a retcon, yes, but it is interesting. You want to go ahead and read that panel too, since it is actually
Yeah. Kruger says, "Normally I would never speak out against a ranger. I respect what they do, but this woman does not deserve to be one. Astronema wanted my people to fight for her. We refused and raised our planet's shields in defiance. She stole the codes to drop the shields, but didn't use them herself. No, she gave them to a would-be emperor named Grum. She handed the key to our destruction over to a monster with a grudge against us. She knew his attack would be slower, more cruel. I lost my wife that night." Wow.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is before SPD.
I think
Because
that right. I think that I'm wondering how long before SPD this was, but that's neither here nor there. I think the person that actually made the best defense for Astronema was actually Maya. I think Maya made the best defense for Astronema.
Mhm.
Or for Corone, I should say, Corone.
Mhm.
Because she goes on to say Kendricks was the original Pink Galaxy Ranger. She fell in battle against Psycho Pink. It was Corone who found Kendricks's quasar saber and kept it out of out of evil hands. Kendricks's spirit blessed Corone with the power of the saber, and she became the new Pink Ranger. Corone proved herself to be a true hero. She is a dear friend, and I trust her with my life. The problem is with that. The problem with that argument is that it's speaking of post Astronema Corone, but I think what is definitely on trial here is pre-Corone Astronema. Does that make sense?
Right. Right. And
I-
Leo's defense talks about the episode where he lost his powers and they went into the cave and met the warrior that
yeah.
Corone had killed as Astronema, and and got his powers back, and how that warrior basically forgave her. And but honestly, and this is good writing right here, because the prosecutor points out something that I'm surprised more people don't talk about. I'm surprised we didn't talk about this. He actually says, "Yeah, but Kendricks wouldn't have died if not for Astronema, because she made the psychos."
Mhm.
Ow. Yeah.
Because I mean, I think that panel is worth addressing too. It's like the prosecutor comes to Maya and says, "One follow-up question, Yellow Ranger. You said Kendricks Morgan perished fighting Psycho Pink, correct? Um, please correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Astronema create the Psycho Rangers just a year prior? So if Astronema had not created Psycho Pink, Kendricks would have never fallen. It's interesting that Astronema creates a weapon that slays your friend, takes her place, and you call her a hero for it. No further questions, Your Honor. So that's laying the groundwork. That's laying the defense or laying the groundwork for the only reason Corone got to be Galaxy Pink is because Kendricks was killed. Yes, that is true.
Right.
But what this prosecutor is doing is framing it to make it sound like it was more intentional. So
I don't know if it was so much intentional, but I think he's saying she's at least indirectly responsible.
He's implying that she took advantage of the situation she created to become a ranger.
Right. Yeah. That does seem to be the implication. But here's the thing. And they don't spend a lot of time talking about this, but even the setup for this trial is a little bit suspect. They said Corone was abducted from her bed on Miranoi.
Right.
And dragged in here. They're like, you shouldn't even be doing this. How can you just put her on trial that fast when you basically kidnapped her? So the fact that this trial is even being conducted is a little bit suspect. But as hard hitting as all of that is, how do you feel about how this is resolved? Because I don't think there's no good way to get out of this.
No, because when Andros finally lets Corone speak, or when Andros finally sits down long enough to listen to Corone, it turns out Corone actually wants to be put on trial. She actually wants to pay for her crimes, and because of guilt. There's this panel here where Maya is trying to console her, and Andros is pacing back and forth. He's freaking out, just saying, "What can we do? They're trying to crucify her." And Corone says, "Oh, stop it, you two. These people are not the enemy. They're the victims. They're my victims. Everything they're saying about me is true. I had hoped that being a ranger would help balance the scales, but I'll never be able to make up for what I did. Fighting Trakina doesn't help the orphans I created as Astronema." And then it kind of goes on, and she goes on to be very remorseful for her crimes, and she's trying to convince her brother to let the trial proceed as it needs to, and he's not having it. He's not having it.
Because he said, "I spent years trying to find you. I'm not losing you again." So it makes total sense that he would be acting this way.
It makes sense, but I have to play devil's advocate here and ask, is Andros being selfish?
I think there is an element of selfishness there. I do.
Like, is he being selfish right now? Because he knows. I believe that. I'm just reading. I'm probably reading too much into this, but
no. I think this is I think this is the kind of story where you're allowed to do that.
Right. So Andros, in his heart of hearts, knows his sister is guilty. Because as Astronema, this is pre-cyborg Astronema, as Astronema, she made a choice. And as we saw if we're going by the continuity that was showed to us in Space, but Astronema wasn't sure what she wanted to do even then. So she had, so she had free will at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But she used her free will to do evil things. So I believe that in Andros's heart of hearts, he knows his sister is guilty and that she needs to pay for her crimes. He just doesn't want that to happen because he's being selfish right now.
Right. Because here's the thing. Like I said, I'm all for redemption. Mm-hmm. But remorse doesn't exempt you from the consequences of your actions.
Oh no. No, it doesn't. It doesn't prevent. It doesn't prevent. Remorse doesn't prevent justice from being served. It doesn't. You can say, if I leave my apartment tonight and go to the grocery store or whatever and accidentally hit somebody and they die, I would feel incredibly awful for that, and that I would carry that burden for the rest of my life. But that doesn't mean that I don't deserve to at least be put on. I don't deserve some form of punishment.
Right. Right. Something needs to be demanded of you,
Yes.
which is what makes the whole thing difficult. If-
Mhm.
because I do think there are good points on either side. I don't think, and the court at least pays lip service to that, as we understand that she's done things since then,
Yeah.
and
The
that she's, we understand the circumstances. We understand that she's done good things since then,
Mhm.
but that doesn't erase
Well,
what's
here's
happened.
the judge goes on to say, let me start by saying that this court recognizes the good that the accused has done recently and acknowledges the tragedy of her childhood. However, these facts do not make up for the years of tyranny that she inflicted upon countless planets due to the nature of due to the nature and the magnitude of these crimes. I have no choice but to find the defendant guilt, and then it cuts
Yeah,
because
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 then we get Andrew's solution.
which before we get to the solution, let me ask you, do you think that Andros did the right thing?
That is, that's a difficult thing to answer, because there is a part of me that wants to say yes, but I don't think in the long run that it was, because
Why don't
it's still based on a deception, as we'll unpack here in a moment.
Right. Right. So I personally think that he did not do the right thing in the eyes of the law and the eyes of justice. I think he did but I do, on the contrary, think he did the right thing to to save and love his sister. At least what he
Right.
thinks. At least he thinks what would be the right thing. Now,
Right, because that's how it is for me. I think on an emotional level, I'm with Andros, but when I think about it logically, it's not the best solution here.
mhm, yeah. So now, in my opinion, much like, and I was thinking about this before we started recording, much like Corone was robbed of her childhood, she was robbed of her adolescence. I think, I think that, I think Andros, in doing what he did, robbed her of, um, closure, or close. Maybe
I,
closure is not the right word.
Closure's not the word she used, because do we want to talk about how he tries to solve the problem and then talk about
Yeah,
how she
yeah,
responded to that? Because
go, yeah,
that's another gut punch right there.
right. Go over how he solves we're dancing around it. So let's just go ahead and talk
Right, we
about it. And
are.
then we'll,
Basically, what ends up happening is that when the judge gets interrupted before passing sentence,
Mhm.
suddenly Astronema shows up. Not Corone, Astronema. And then there's this whole panic. While that's all going on, they call in security to fight her. She is being as Astronema as you can get. The four of them slip away to the Astro Mega ship and fly away. And then this Astronema gets taken out by, I'm guessing, security forces here. And they're like, how the heck did that happen? Well, in another little bit of in space continuity, we find out it was Andros using the holographic technology that they used in their training room.
Mhm.
And he made a replica of Astronema. And his argument was that you get to, because they were saying, everybody, it's like, it's what happened was that Corona and Astronema got split. And this is basically her evil side, and Corona is innocent. That was the argument in the moment. So
Right.
in some weird way, I'm sure that is actually what Andros believes. Because they take her out and she's like, so they get their justice and you get off scot-free.
But is that real justice, though?
It isn't, because I would say, and Corone understandably responds by slapping her brother in the face. He thought he was the big dang hero, and she slapped him for it, and then proceeds to compare him to Dark Spectre for taking her choice away. Ow!
Yes. Yes.
Sheesh! It is not a good day to be Corone. Yeah, because she says, how dare you take that decision out of my hands like that? I told you I was going to accept their decision. He says, they were going to kill you, Corone. That's where this was leading. It wasn't fair. Astronema is not who you really are. And she says, oh, please. I am so sick of this little fantasy you tell yourself. I am Astronema. I was raised for 15 years to be Astronema. Every day on Miranoi, I have to actively tell myself to be kinder, gentler, and more patient than my instincts tell me to be. Andros says, look, I'm sorry you're mad, but I am not going to apologize for saving your life, which I can understand. And then she punctuates it by saying, you took my choice away from me, Andros. Do you get that? That's the exact same thing Dark Spectre did to me. I will not be controlled and manipulated again, especially not by my own brother.
Yeah.
Ow.
Ow.
The brilliance of this story is that there's no real easy answer.
No.
You could say that there's enough stuff in here to say this is a show trial.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough to say that that the three Rangers make valiant defenses and they should be considered. But it doesn't erase what happened. Corone wanted to accept justice and pay for her crimes, understandably so. But Andros says that's not who you are anymore. It's there's no good way to get by. At best, this story is bittersweet.
Yeah.
At the absolute best.
So, but yeah, I think you're exactly right. This entire issue, this entire comic is incredibly bittersweet, because on one hand you have Corone, who wants to pay for the crimes that she committed, and we saw this even in Lost Galaxy. We saw
Right.
Corone warfare with what she did as Astronema, and she did not make the decision to reprise her role, so to speak, as Astronema to get back the Quasar Saber. She didn't take that decision lightly, because she knew what slipping back into that character could potentially do to her.
Right.
But I think that Corone desperately wants to separate herself from her brother. She wants to become her own person. And Andros, because he has never really known his sister, he's never gotten the opportunity to know Corone as his sister, is desperately clinging to whatever thing he can to save her. And in this case, she doesn't want to be saved. She wants to atone for what she's done. But Andros,
and that means accepting the justice that she deserves at this point.
Exactly. And I think
it's not going around doing things to, as she puts it, balance the scales. No,
Yeah.
It's you deserve to die for what you did, and she was going to go along with that. I mean, you could say that there's some definite self-loathing there, and probably some depression, I would say, connected to that.
Yeah.
And you could say that she's just being hard on herself, but like, I can't imagine what it's like to live with that. I really can't.
No,
So, you know,
it's
and
incredibly tragic, and it's even Andros's story is tragic because he's desperately trying to save the sister that he doesn't really know all that well.
right.
Um,
Now, the
but he's
thing that I will say I appreciate about how this ends is I don't think Corone hates her brother.
no, because it ends with a
She's
conversation.
definitely she's definitely upset with him,
Mhm.
but she doesn't say I never want to see you again. You're not my brother anymore or anything like that. She just says basically, Andros, you need to give me space.
Yeah, and then my and
I need to go figure myself out for a little while.
and then the issue, and then the story ends with a conversation between her and Maya. It's like Maya simply says, "Are you okay?" And then Corone says, "Not yet, but I will be."
Yeah. So I do appreciate that it does end on a bit of a hopeful note, because the impression I get is that the court will leave her alone. She doesn't have to
Mhm.
worry about being put on trial again,
Mhm.
but she has to live with this now. She has to live with what she did, and she has to live with what her brother did to save her.
Right.
But I don't think it's permanent, which is what I appreciate so much about this story.
Yeah. Because
Because
it also
it would have been so easy to just have it end with "I hate you, never talk to me again."
because what happens when the hologram breaks?
Well, no, the hologram's gone. The hologram got destroyed. That's so they think Astronema's dead.
Mm. I well, what happens when let me think of a better question. What happens when Andros finally has to come to grips with the fact that his sister made the choices that she made because his sister made some really terrible choices,
Mhm.
and it wasn't just mind control. It was because she wanted to, because she was raised to be that way.
Mhm. I don't know. That might be something for Boom to explore in another issue. I would be curious to see that.
Yep, I would too.
More stories with Andros and Corone. I want more of that. I want to see
Mhm.
more of them together, because we didn't get to see a lot of them together in those shows when she wasn't being Astronema.
Mhm.
I mean, it just goes back to when we did our our season finale last season. I didn't just do it for fanboy reasons, putting Corona and Andros on the teams, because I really think that that would be such an interesting dynamic. And I want to see more of that. It was a missed opportunity. And I'm grateful that Boom has done comics like this that play into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of a downer way to end the episode, isn't it?
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a downer. I mean, it's a really. I mean, we've ended episodes on thoughtful notes before. It's just a thoughtful note. It's just a thoughtful
No,
note.
that's what I
And
mean. It's just that it's such an emotionally intense story,
right. I mean, it's not. It's
and
not the
and
first.
a tragic story.
It's not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time we end a show end an episode on a more somber note. But I think for this, it works. I don't want to. I don't want to ham it up too much because I want to respect how somber this story is. So
For sure.
anyway,
But that is
anyway,
the 25th anniversary comic from Boom Studios. I mean, yeah, we thought about doing all of Beyond the Grid. We may still do it. We're not sure. We're still trying to figure it out. It's just that Beyond the Grid is a big
it's a
story.
big story. Oh, it's a huge story.
It is a huge story, but I knew it's like we at least have to cover this, because once we get to Trial of Astronema, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that if you own the Beyond the Grid comic, there's actually one more story that um uh that is included in this that wasn't originally included in the 25th anniversary book, which is the one
Yeah.
the book the original 25th anniversary that you and I read, and it's a story that talks about a story that talks about two characters, Remy, and I hope I'm saying this last name correctly, Ellarine or Ellarin.
Right. The
two
Solar Rangers.
The Solar Rangers, yeah, two of the Solar Rangers. It's a cute story. It's nice character development between the two of them. So if you have the Beyond the Grid comic, I recommend you
The
read
graphic
that.
novel. It's exclusive to the graphic
It's
novel.
yeah, that's right. It's exclusive to the graphic novel, but it's a really sweet story, and I
because the collection is I think it's the 8 issues. I want to say it's 8 issues for Beyond the Grid, the 25th anniversary special. What's it worth to you? And then like 50 or 100 pages of covers. If you get the hardback big bad special edition, anyway.
Right. So Nathan, that's it for this comics coverage. Do you want to tell the listeners with attitude what they can expect the next episode?
Well, like I said, you're going to get 2 Sentai episodes in a row. First up, it's going to be Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger, which became Mighty Morphin Season 3 and Alien Rangers. I am like chest deep into this show now. I use the Shout Factory DVDs. I just started disc 8 of 10. And it's been interesting, to say the least. So far.
It's a fun season though. It is a really fun.
It's fun, but I also feel like Die Rangers set the bar so high that coming right after it is good luck. It's not quite as crazy or as good as I was expecting it to be, if that makes sense. It's not bad, but like I said, it might just be because Die Rangers set the bar so high. But,
and that makes sense though. That makes sense though.
Right. But so that will be our March Sentai episode, and then because we're promising you a Sentai episode every month, and then we're going to talk about Choriki Sentai Oranger, which became Zeo, and our friend Jack G-Man Hudgens will be on for that one. You may remember him from when we did the 2017 movie last season. And if you listen to, well, basically any of our other podcasts, has he finished the Marchand Hamilton hat trick too? Did you have him on Kaiju Groupie?
He was never on Kaiju Groupie, my solo show.
He's one short.
But was he? Oh yes, he was on. He was actually on Kaiju Weekly. We talked about Turbo that episode.
Yeah. He's actually, I think he's been on a couple of times on Kaiju Weekly. He's been on a couple of times on Henshin Men. So he's one short of the hat trick.
Right. So he'll be back, and I'm looking forward to. I love Oranger. I'm really curious what you think about Oranger when you watch it, because Oranger goes pretty dang hard.
Yeah, given what I've heard and the hype that I've heard around it, at least from my circle, it sounds like it's going to be dang good. Although it seems like some people don't like it in the fandom,
and those people would be
not sure why.
And those people would be crazy or have poor taste, but that's neither here nor there.
This is coming from the guy who defends Turbo.
What? Come on.
Corsets.
Whatever. That does not even apply here, sir. Thank you very.
Well, we'll see how it goes when we get to the superior version of Turbo. But yeah, and then like I said, after that, I know I'm kind of previewing really far ahead, but I feel like we have to at this point, because after O-Ranger, we get to our first bit of 30th anniversary coverage with, is it just Once and Always, or is it Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always?
I think it's, if the title card is to be taken literally, it's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always.
Which we've gotten a few more details about that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be about an hour long.
55 minutes.
I would have preferred more like 90 minutes, but whatever.
I'm guessing
I will take it. Yeah, but I'm guessing considering how close we are to it, I mean, we're at the beginning of March. It's coming out at the end of April. So I don't imagine they're going to put out another trailer because I'm curious about Robo Rita.
I think they're gonna. I think we're not. I don't think we're gonna see another preview until we actually watch it. I don't think we're gonna know anything until we actually watch it.
Yeah. So hashtag Netflix party.
I mean, I intended to watch it together, at least to get that first impression together. And then I'll probably rewatch it for the show, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff to look forward to coming forward.
Mhm.
2 Sentai episodes in a row. That's going to be a little challenging.
It will be. It'll be challenging, but it'll be a good time. We've done it before, March-An. We binged hours upon hours upon hours of Power Rangers. We will be fine.
We will be fine. I'm fine now. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Everything is fine. It's the meme with the dog in the burning room. Everything is fine.
Are you trying to say things are unhappy behind the scenes at Taisaku Sentai Pod Ranger?
I'm incredible. How dare you? I'm incredibly happy, sir. I love how I've enjoyed how the show has gone so far. I mean, Rito's a pain in the ass, but that's
I forgot you're stealing yourself because you're expecting Rito to show up for Kaku Ranger.
I'm traumatized traumatized is more like it.
He hasn't even shown up. We haven't even recorded Kaku Ranger yet, and you're already traumatized.
I'm already traumatized. But before this episode goes too far, let's just say it just goes too far. Thank you, listeners with attitude, for listening to this episode. And as always, may you never have to defend your warlord, planet-destroying sister in court.
I believe the term you were looking for is war lady, sir. And may you love your spouse enough to descend into the underworld for them.
And may the power protect you. Thank you for listening to The Power Trip, a podcast produced and hosted by Michael Hamilton and Nathan Marchand.
If you'd like to send us feedback, email us at powertrippod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @thepowertrippod, and join our official Facebook group, Power Rangers Legacy. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other great podcatchers.
The podcast logo was designed by Rebecca Hudgens. Follow her on Instagram at super_R_illustrations.
Our theme song was created by JP Gant. Follow him on Twitter at HomebrewedSD. We also use tracks from Super Sentai Complete Works 30th Anniversary album. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied.
The Power Trip has no association with Toei Company Limited, Saban Entertainment, or Hasbro. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. And until next time, see ya!
This podcast is part of the KAIJU Ramen Podcasting Network and is copyright 2023 KAIJU Ramen Media, LLC. Ha ha!